It's Thursday, February 20th, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're going to be covering on today's episode of the show. Rumors are swirling that Apple may be opening up iOS just a little bit, with the possibility of third-party apps and services being allowed to be set as default applications on iPhones and iPads. And we've got some great guests today, including Niels Woolney, the CEO and co-founder of HoloRide, which is an entirely new media category that connects car passengers to mixed reality. And our gaming editor, Lisa Marie Segarra, will be on the show today to talk about the state of the gaming industry and give us a recap of everything announced at Nintendo Direct. And it is Thursday, which means you're probably thinking about what movie you want to see this weekend. So we've got another edition of Real News with Riley Wynn and Aaron Keeney providing you the rundown on the best films at the box office this weekend. All of this and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. Well, hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Of course, we broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All we're broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So thank you for joining us wherever you are. Type away. Let us know what you want to talk about. To get started, I'm Greg Nibbler, here with Adrienne Warner. Hello, Adrienne.
Hello. Have you ever considered a career in an auction house,
I
Greg?
really have thought about it before. I think maybe if I could get it down, it might work out.
Oh, yeah, I think this is a bright future for you.
So this is what it's all been trending towards. You're watching the start of my auction career. All right, let's get talking about some tech. So we've got some trending stories here to cover, and the first one has to do with Apple. A lot of rumors have been coming out about Apple lately, but this one has to do with third-party apps being used on their devices. So right now, obviously, if you're an Apple user, and Adrienne, I want you to speak to this too, because I understand the default apps that come on there are usually you have to use Apple's services.
Yeah, you have to use Apple services. I mean, you can set your own preferred, third-party browsers, email applications, but you have to physically do that on your phone, and you can't get rid of the other pieces, or you can deactivate them, but they're always going to be there. It's a real pain, and it's not necessarily an intuitive process for people. So they often use the default apps that come with the Apple service. Yeah.
And that's what the rumor is, that they may not have to do that anymore, that Apple may open that up to where the default apps could be something else. And you would think that, this is just something they're listening to their customers, this is exactly what you want. But no.
No.
Trends more towards some impending lawsuits and possible fines they could be getting over monopolies, because it's not just the third-party apps on the iPhones and iPads as far as your email service or your browser. They're also talking about opening up even the HomePod to where Spotify could run natively on that, instead of having to go through a kind of a roundabout way to do it.
Yeah, and like you said, they're kind of having their hand forced into this a little bit, not just listening to the consumers, but last summer the EU was prepping to launch a huge antitrust investigation over Spotify, as you mentioned, and it had complaints that Apple was essentially pushing users towards its own music service and was not allowing people to use, their own option of software. So this is kind of in that vein, and it really just goes to show you, in my opinion, that Apple's just not a software company. They make the hardware. People should be allowed to install whatever they want on it.
Right. I mean, and you being an iPhone user, is this something that you would like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it further pushes people towards, having choice and feeling like Apple is not locking you into an ecosystem, which is a major complaint of people who don't use Apple products.
Yeah, and so we'll have to see where this goes. I mean, and again, this is all part of some other rumors that are coming out, about what updates they're going to be making. There's the possibility of a hardware event maybe at the end of March that people are talking about, and so we're hearing more about some of the iOS updates, because there is one that's coming out. There may even be iOS 14, which could come out later this year.
Yeah, and these updates could be in that software update. So yeah, we could see those changes as soon as later this year, and on iPhones and iPads.
Yeah, so definitely a big change on there, and kind of one of those ones where their hands being forced. But it sounds like everybody would kind of win. We do want to know what your opinion is, so let us know on whatever platform you are watching. But that's what we've got on that for right now. So you can find out more about that at digitaltrends.com.
All right, and we have, another day and another Tesla story. So researchers at the security or cybersecurity firm McAfee, if you haven't heard about that in a long time, have discovered a way to trick the Tesla automated cruise control into speeding and thinking that the road sign is actually reading higher than the speed it actually is. So what they did is they took a really small piece of tape and they just altered a speed sign to change from 35 miles an hour to look like it's going 85. And the camera on the Tesla read that, started to speed up, and that is obviously a major flaw with these cameras.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things too, is that we talk about more and more, autonomous vehicles being on the road and having them manage all of this. That's something where something that easy to where you could actually convince the car to go 85 miles an hour, you can only imagine what kind of harm that could cause.
Right.
So, and it's really just a tiny piece of tape.
Just a tiny piece of tape, yeah. It doesn't look like it's been maliciously altered, and to the human eye, it's very, very obvious of the change. But the Tesla, and let me specify too that these are an older camera that are reading this incorrectly. So it's using these Mobileye cameras, which is like a major vendor in this driving assist technology.
Yeah.
And these newer Tesla models don't actually have that, but the older ones are being tricked into thinking that these signs have been altered.
Yeah, and I mean it's a piece of tape on there. Clearly, to the human eye, you would say, okay, well that's 35, and they're showcasing right here just kind of how it reads these signs, and it just adds into this idea of what they're actually controlling. So they're actually reading the speed limit signs. That's how they're adjusting to this. And yes, it's an older camera, but it makes you think about what some of these other ones would be able to do. And it also just brings up the point of when are autonomous vehicles going to be on the road? Well, probably not till all of this gets resolved, because these kinds of things are what people are concerned with.
Right.
When you have somebody, we've certainly seen instances where people have fallen asleep at the wheel while their Tesla is just driving them around. What happens if something like that goes on? And it's just a piece of tape.
Yeah,
just a piece of tape was able to do that.
Tape. Yeah, and so you think about what other kind of alterations could also trick the vehicle, even if there was something like a recall issued, or if a software update got pushed to mitigate this, people could come up with some more sophisticated ways to trick the Tesla or other automated driving services into thinking that things are incorrect.
Right. I mean, and you talk about, just the software update, that brings up the whole idea of hacking and,
right.
What could people actually do with it? And there's a lot of certain concerns there. And that's why I think the regulations were a ways away from having full autonomous vehicles on the road. And this is part of the reason why, which is why, this is great that they did this test and put this out just to say, hey, here's a flaw that you want to take a look at. Even the newer ones, we'll have to see where those are. But definitely something that, I think that it's a concern, mm-hmm. and they're just kind of showcasing what that is.
Yeah, it just really goes to show you the importance of still having the driver in the vehicle and able to take over at any time, and that is, what Tesla always recommends in their instructions, is that you always, when activating these automated driving services, that you need to be alert and still have your hands on the wheel.
Right. So take a look at that. We've got an article up on that at digitaltrends.com. It definitely kind of opens up that discussion about autonomous vehicles. So check that all out right there. Speaking of vehicles, let's talk about this. There's a lot of different ways that dealerships are trying to experiment with getting you their vehicles, including subscription services. And now Nissan is the latest to offer this. So this is going to be taking place at a dealership in Houston. And here's how it works. So instead of buying the vehicle, you actually just pay a subscription service. It's not like leasing. It's a little bit different because you can actually trade out the vehicle depending on what tier you're on. So this thing is called Nissan Switch. And essentially you pay a $495 membership fee. So you got to pay that up front. But then you have different tiers. There's an app right there that you utilize, and they will actually bring the vehicles to you. And you can borrow any kind of different ones depending on which tier. There's a select tier, which costs $699 a month, where you can use a Nissan Altima, Rogue, Pathfinder, or a Frontier. And they've got a higher tier one where you can actually use a Leaf Plus, Maxima, Murano, Armada, Titan, and 370Z, so you can get a pickup truck, get a car. Yeah, you can do whatever you want, and I guess you can trade them out as often as you want.
Yeah, and apparently you can trade them out as often as you want, and you can even use its sports car if you pay an extra additional $100 per day, which gives you have to. It's a 7-day cap, but still, like, how much fun is it to be like, okay, I need to run to Home Depot, for example, I need a truck, and then trade it in for a sports car to go, hit the road and have some fun.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an interesting platform for that, and they're not the first ones to do this. There's other companies that have tried it out, but this is kind of the first major big manufacturer.
Yeah, a luxury or non-specialty car manufacturer that has a wider access range.
Yeah, and I want to know what people think about that too, because I like this idea. I mean, the price is a little bit high, but the monthly fee includes delivery, cleaning, insurance, roadside assistance, and regular maintenance.
Okay.
So all of that's kind of wrapped in.
The insurance being wrapped in is really nice because I know with a lot of rentals, you kind of go, well, I think my insurance covers my rental car, and you're not 100% sure all of the time.
You would know that from experience.
I would know this from experience. Not that anything bad has happened, but I think that this will push other automakers to roll out similar subscription services, and hopefully, then prices will fall a little bit. And also, too, in the absence of car sharing companies like Car2Go, which is no longer operating in the U.S., this is becoming increasingly important and really something that people want. They don't need a vehicle every single day, but they need it sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of also is a symbol of where people are going with how they want to purchase things. Like subscription services aren't just online; it's things that you actually want to use. Like actual physical products, people aren't buying as much. They want to have a service. So this is what this is all about, and we'll have to see how this all works out. Now, one thing with some of the previous versions where the auto manufacturers tried to skip the dealerships, this is going through a dealership in Houston. So this is just a Houston area for right now. Should specify that, but we'll see. I'm sure if it goes well, it'll go elsewhere. But dealerships really fought back against car manufacturers going direct to consumers. So it's not going to be something where they're going to be going away anytime soon. But as of right now, that's what they're testing out right there.
Yeah, it's just another option to consumers, which I think is really important, especially with something as big as purchasing a car or not purchasing a car.
Right.
It's nice to have another option besides just leasing.
Yeah, and so you can check more about that at digitaltrends.com.
All right, well, the network streaming service CBS All Access has announced a major upgrade to its roster of shows and content. So today the company announced that its new broad pay streaming service will include other Viacom properties. So Nickelodeon, MTV, Comedy Central, and Paramount Pictures are all going to be added to its content. And they're hoping that this is going to broaden their offerings and kind of keep it up to date with other streaming services that are really, making huge leaps forward.
Yeah, and I think you're right there with all the different competition that is out there right now. You're gonna have HBO Max, you're gonna have the Peacock network from NBC Universal, and so CBS All Access has kind of been it's been the Star Trek network. I mean, that's what's
it
been
really
on
has.
there.
Yeah, it launched Picard, which has been drawing its own huge viewership, but it can't just hinge on one single show or one single property. So it's really important to get these other, networks on there.
And going with this, it's the CBS Viacom and Viacom re-merging together that happened late last year. So this is kind of bringing all of that in. So they have all these properties now, and they're calling it a house of brands. So they have all of these brand names, like you mentioned, Nickelodeon, MTV's, and a bunch of other ones. So this would all go under that. But then there's three different kinds of access. There's Pluto TV, which is also part of this. Pluto TV, which is free, but with all kinds of ads. Then you have the $5.99 a month CBS All Access with ads. And then you have $9.99 without ads. So where the actual pricing structure falls, we don't know 100%. And it's expected this would kind of roll out later on this year. But that is what they're doing to compete in this. And the problem is, it's one more streaming service. CBS All Access has been around for a while.
Right.
But man, there are so many of them.
There's so many, and you start adding in these other networks that you thought you could get on bigger streaming services like Netflix or Hulu, and once that takes it away from those streaming platforms, then you kind of get boxed into like, okay, what do I want? What do I want to pay for? And it's the whole ordeal of having a giant cable package again, which we've talked about multiple times on the show for sure.
Yeah, it's all kind of rolling back to that, but you can take a look at that at digitaltrends.com and let us know what you think about that. All right, it is now time for a new segment here on Digital Trends Live.
Hey, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
Yes, indeed, it is time for the product of the day. This is a new segment here on Digital Trends Live. We're going to showcase some specific things that we want you to know about and that we think you would find as a really great deal. And today we're talking about the Apple Watch Series 3. So here is what we're looking at. So at the time of its release in 2017, it was the best smartwatch you could buy, and it still holds up. So as we're taking a look right here, obviously it's sleek, it feels good, it looks nice, and one of the other things too, it's one of those where you can hook it up to your phone, obviously right there. It's good for making calls. It can connect to your Bluetooth headset, so that way, you don't want to have to run around and have to deal with that. So it's got great Bluetooth on it. The only thing that's different between this and the Series 4 is it just doesn't have the ECG, so that's totally fine. Yeah, and it's also swim-proof. So that's the thing. You can swim with this on. It is pretty amazing, and I actually unboxing this today. It actually was really fun unboxing it. It comes in some really nice packaging. It feels good when you have it. It's also GPS enabled, and the thing is, it's only $299. So if you've been thinking about getting a watch, this is probably something that a lot of us have thought about, or maybe you want to upgrade from what you already had. This is the premier stuff to get. I mean, Apple Watch is one of the best sellers for a reason, and this is the Series 3. It's at a great deal for $299, and that is why we have picked it for our product of the day. So obviously, look at that. You want that on your wrist, don't you? You want to look cool, and it does look cool because especially compared to some of the other ones that are out there, this is like a classic. And for $299, all you have to do is click the link that we are showing you right now. So click that link, you can pick that up, and that is our debut product of the day. All right, we're going to continue on with Digital Trends Live, and I thank everybody who's joining us here, wherever you're watching. Coming up next, we've got some Read 'em and Weep. Adrian, are you ready for some Read 'em and Weep?
I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Are you ready, Greg?
I might weep. We'll see what happens. So stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Well, hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler here with Adrian Warner. It's now time for Read 'em and Weep. This is where we take a look at some of the comments that are trending across the internet as a whole, and also some directed directly to Digital Trends, and we address them directly to you back. And this is what we're going to do here. Are you prepared?
I think I'm prepared, but every time this is a wild ride. We don't know what to expect.
A lot of ups, a lot of downs.
Yeah, we just got to charge in.
We don't see these ahead of time. I already like it because there's bubbles on there with the Trailer Park Boys, tickle their bellies twice. Love your pet day. Yes, bubbles. I can't repeat the name. Well, that might be Gary Laser Eyes, because that is the name of one of his cats.
That is the name of one of his.
Gary Laser Eyes is probably the only one I can actually repeat the name of on this show.
So we're gonna go with Gary Laser Eyes.
Gary Laser Eyes. He does have some other names for his cats that I want to repeat right now, but I cannot. If you have not watched Trailer Park Boys, you are missing out. Bubbles.
Pet your kitties, y'all.
Yes. All right. Rock and roll pictures. Jim Morrison with his black lab dog. Love your pet day. Wow.
Pet day. Well, what a wonderful day.
Yes. Love your pet day.
Love your pet day. I'm really into this hashtag. Also into this vintage photograph of Jim Morrison. That's
right.
Super cute.
Didn't know he had a black lab dog.
Nope.
Does Charlie know that it's Love Your Pet Day? Does your dog know this?
He knows it's Love Your Pet Day every day.
Oh, see, there we go. That was the right answer. That was the one.
All right. Our own head of video, Lara Newman. I love my adorable baby psycho, George.
Psycho. Yeah, George does kind of look like a psycho. He looks adorable, though, and probably the best cat I have ever seen in my entire life.
Wow.
And I just want to say that this cat looks
This is your
amazing.
very favorite cat in the whole wide world?
Yes. I've
and you're
never
not
seen
saying
a cat
that for
I love
any
more
reason?
than that. Not at all. I don't know who Lara is, and but clearly that's the winner of the day. Yep.
All right, Destiny. Regarding our Samsung Galaxy Flip Z review, 24 hours later, how to sneak your phone in class. So I'm guessing that there were some tips in there on how to
It must be because
keep
it
things
folds
under the
down.
radar. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
because it's small.
Hey, this is what we used to call flip phones back in the day, kids.
Yeah.
Snapping
Exactly.
it shut when somebody came by and tried to read your text.
Yes, it's this. Oh, it's that snapping
It's
sound.
the
That's the
snap.
only reason I
So
want that.
satisfying.
It is just never mind, and then like flipping it open, buy, sell. That's all I do.
Whatever.
Yeah, closing it shut. Oh, I want one. All right. Hello. Regarding Wi-Fi 6 is coming. Wi-Fi 6, Return of the Signal. Wi-Fi 6, Tokyo Drift. Wi-Fi 6, The Return of the King. Yeah.
Excellent. Very fun.
Yeah, Wi-Fi 6 is rolling out.
All right.
We've got
I
articles
guess
about
we're
it in
ready
Digital
for it.
Trends.
That's
sequel.
all you have to say
We
about
thought 5 was good enough, but no, it's coming back
No,
for a
6. And then, it'll get bought by Disney.
The rise of Wi-Fi. That's probably what it's going to be. Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so again, taking a look here. Read 'em and weep. These are some of the comments that are trending from across the internet right here on the show. Rich Gaming.
All right, regarding the Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus versus Amazon Echo Buds. Absolute garbage. Reviewed by a total Apple fanboy. Just had to throw in the Apple Buds comment. Biased, unbalanced review. Ignore this review.
I love the all caps, ignore this review at all costs. Okay.
I also just love them calling our editors Apple fanboys.
I know.
I mean, that's rich.
I know, and the thing is, it's a Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus versus Amazon Echo Buds. But, I mean, you can't ignore that Apple AirPods do exist.
Yeah, and
They're
are
out there.
wildly popular.
Very popular, yeah, and I don't think it makes us Apple fanboys for bringing that up. But ignore this review.
Ignore this.
I'm sure you've really made an impact on that, and thank you.
I bet a lot of people are not going to see that review because
No,
of
they
this
won't.
comment.
Well, I was gonna watch it, but now it says ignore this review. Actually, that's probably good.
I
for
always follow internet order.
us. Yes. Well, the internet told me not to. Got to follow it. All right, well, there it is. That is Read 'em and Weep. But again, this is something we do here almost every day at Digital Trends Live, where we take a look at some of the trending comments from around the internet. Coming up on the show today, we've got Lisa Marie Segarra, who's our gaming editor. She's going to be talking about Nintendo Direct and everything that happened at that. I know you are excited about that, I can tell. And then we've also got some great guests joining us. So, in addition to that, coming up next, we've got, let's see, that is Niels Woolney, who's the CEO and co-founder of HoloRide. So this is talking about mixed reality in vehicles. How you can, how can we
Sounds
use
cool.
more entertainment in our vehicles? And I think this even comes down to things like when you have a ride share, you're riding in an Uber, maybe you're sitting in the back, you put on some glasses, and it turns into a game. I can't tell if that's excited or scared, what look that means right there, but nonetheless, that's what we're going to be talking about.
All right.
Okay. So
Sounds exciting.
That's coming up next, and thank you everybody for joining us. But before we go to break, thank you, Adrian.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, and
Always.
appreciate all of you watching. So stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We do appreciate it. Of course, we broadcast live here every weekday, so hit that subscribe button and share the show. Let people know about it because we get to talk about some really cool things here on the show, and certainly autonomous vehicles are something we bring up quite a bit. But with all of that free time we're going to have, what are we going to do with it? Well, this is what we're going to talk about in part right now. Joining us, we have Niels Woolney, who's the CEO and co-founder of HoloRide. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Greg.
I love talking about different utilizations of virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, all of that. And I really want to get into what we're discussing here, but can you give everybody just a little bit of background on what HoloRide is as a company?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we're here to entertain you. So most of the time, transit time feels like wasted time for passengers. So what we do, we bring mixed reality or extended reality into cars by synchronizing the movement of the vehicle with the content you're seeing. So basically, this happens in real time. So imagine yourself not sitting in a car as a passenger, but maybe in a spaceship. And the spaceship moves exactly the same way the car does. So you feel like the kinetics of the real car, of the real drive, but you're sitting in VR or in any other immersive environment. And basically are taken into this virtual space, but feel the haptics of the car. So it's more immersive and has also a big benefit. It's reducing the effects of motion sickness too.
See, and that's actually, I wanted to ask about that because I would almost think that it would increase motion sickness, but with this, since you're going along with the ride, is that kind of how it counteracts that?
Yeah, so when we started the project, most people said, you guys are nuts. People get VR sick and people get motion sick in cars, and now you bring these things together. Actually, the effects of motion sickness appear when, for example, your eyes are fixed on a book or on a tablet and your body is feeling something that is not matching what you see. And this mismatch of what you see and what you feel is creating motion sickness. You have the same effect in VR, just the other way around. A lot of people do get VR sick if they're playing a very dynamic game and have no haptic feedback on their body. So that's what causes VR sickness. But if you put these two things together and you synchronize what you see with the movement of the car in almost real time, then it actually brings down motion sickness. And for most people that suffer from motion sickness, this is quite an improvement because actually 1/3 of all people suffer from severe motion sickness and 1/3 get symptoms after a certain period of time. So 2/3 are basically excluded more or less when it comes to visual media in a car. And suddenly we turn one of the worst environments for visual content into one of the best because it's even more immersive than any simulator could be because of the real feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I love that idea that, like you kept saying, the haptic feedback, because you're getting that actual motion. I want to ask about some of the different platforms that you have, some of the different games, and as far as interacting with that real world environment and being able to move the game along with what's happening, are the games basing what's going to happen on, say, like a GPS route, or is it reacting in real time to what the car is actually doing?
Yeah, you can basically do both. So we take signals from the car. So of course we take the GPS signal, so we know where the car is moving, and you can map the environments basically to the route of the car. We can also incorporate the navigation route, so you can tailor the experience perfectly to the travel time. And we take data like acceleration, braking, steering angle, all the G-forces that are basically coming from the car. And so the content is adapted in real time to the motion of the vehicle.
That is cool. So yeah, so the actual game is actually timed out depending on how long the ride is going to be.
Correct. Or there are some casual games that basically you can play endless on any route. But one of the big benefits is if you have the navigation route, that you can tailor the experience to this journey. And if you compare this to watching a show on a tablet that maybe is a linear piece of content and lasts 45 minutes and you're just traveling for 30 minutes, so always the experience gets interrupted. And we can avoid this and tailor this perfectly to the travel time.
I love this, actually. Just watching the videos of that now, I kind of want to play that dinosaur game, whatever it was. But talking about where you're at right now, so you've created this. What kind of VR system does it run on, and where is this actually being utilized right now?
Mm-hmm. So we started the project more than 4 years ago when my two co-founders and me were still working for a premium car manufacturer. So it was an internal project, and we decided to spin this out to be basically available to any car manufacturer. And we follow the same agnostic approach also in terms of headsets. Of course, once we get into serious production vehicles, we want to work with the major standalone VR headsets, build our applications for those systems. Until we do this, and the first vehicles will be HoloRide ready in 2021, end of 2021. Until then, we always do like location-based experiences where we invite people to try it. We have done a bigger project last fall during Halloween Horror Nights at the Universal City Walk in Los Angeles, where people could jump into Ford vehicles and experience Bride of Frankenstein HoloRide experience. We'll do more events like this that are more location-based and even permanent installations where people actually can experience it before it hits the private passenger car.
That is really cool. Well, looking at this going forward, I know I keep saying that's really cool, but sorry, yeah, that it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. I can tell you it is. I love my job.
Yeah, right? That's a pretty good job. Well, looking at this, going forward, how do you see this being utilized? I guess, clearly with ride sharing, I would think this would be a really big option. I mean, autonomous vehicles, do you see this as actually part of that experience? Like once we have full autonomy, which I know isn't going to be for a little while, but is this something that you would see being incorporated into that?
Yeah, definitely. But we decided not to wait until then because the passenger economy already is huge today. I mean, you touched upon ride hailing already today. Every day, there are more than 50 million rides with a passenger on board by the 4 biggest ride hailing companies globally. If you look into the private sector, you have more than 1 billion rides every day in private passenger cars with a passenger on board. So there is no need to wait until the autonomous age is there. But obviously, once everyone turns into a passenger, this market is getting even bigger. In terms of applications, you touched entertainment, gaming, very, very fast-growing market in general. But we also see other use cases like educational use cases. So maybe you get out of the car smarter than you entered it in the future because you had the chance to experience something that is pretty meaningful. Also productivity applications we see in the future for our tech. Everything where it makes sense to synchronize the motion with the content you're seeing for avoiding getting motion sick or for increasing the immersion. So we're looking at those use cases.
I could see this being utilized too if you're, say, visiting a new city and getting a little tour as you're going along and showcasing that.
Yeah, we tested our technology already in vans and buses, so even bigger coaches. We definitely see a lot of applications in this area as well. So whether it's touristic, whether it's pure educational, so there are a lot of applications where we see our tech can definitely benefit the passenger experience.
What is your favorite one that you've tried out so far?
So we're currently building some exciting new stuff that will be released in spring for one of the permanent installations where people can go and try HoloRides. I'll let you know once we launch. And this is currently my favorite piece because this is really a thrill ride, I can tell you.
Great. Yes, please let us know. I definitely want to try it out. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining us too, and I want to let people know where they can go and learn more about this platform.
Yeah, definitely go on holoride.com, sign up for our newsletter, and we'll keep you posted. And also on social channels, of course.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, so really cool. Look at that. Different ways that we can use mixed reality and virtual reality. I can tell you, if I were taking an Uber and that were an option, I would definitely do that. I don't like having the conversations with the Uber driver, so this is even better for me. But this looks pretty amazing. So check that out, HoloRide. All right, we've got a lot more coming up here on the show today because I want to tell you about a double interview that we have coming up here in just a little bit. We've got Dusty Welch and Chad Grenier, who are both from Respawn Entertainment. Yeah, they're going to be on the show here. So they're going to be joining us here in just a little bit. I'm really excited for that. Talking about Season 4 of Apex Legends. So they're going to be joining us. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about some more gaming with our own Lisa Marie Segarra, who's out in our New York studio. She's going to talk about Nintendo Direct and kind of the state of the gaming industry as a whole. So that's coming up next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, thank you for joining us. Hit the subscribe button, share the show, let people know about it because we have a lot to talk about here on the show every single day. And we appreciate those of you who join us. And right now, it's time to talk about the gaming industry. We're going to talk about Nintendo Direct, but before that, we'll talk about maybe the gaming industry as a whole. And to do so, we have our own Lisa Marie Segarra here from New York, joining us here on the show. Lisa Marie, welcome to the show. What do you want to start off with? You want to talk about just gaming as a whole?
Yeah, so gaming as a whole is not doing so great, which is not, unexpected. January numbers were down compared to last January. It was over 26% year over year, but at the same time, last January, we had releases like Kingdom Hearts 3, which was very highly anticipated. It was 15 years in the making. We also had our Resident Evil 2 remake coming out, and this year we had Dragon Ball Z game. So it, wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't enough to bolster sales the way it did last year. And the top of the charts really was Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which weren't exactly the newest of releases. So not great, but I mean, the Xbox and PlayStation are coming to an end with their life cycle. Even though the Switch is newer, it's still not that new anymore, and we're still waiting on some big releases like Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing New Horizons, which come out in March on the 20th. So kind of a lull, but there were some surprises. So Ring Fit Adventure, which is the Switch's fitness game, came up on the charts, which was slightly unexpected. It came out a few months ago, and it didn't really attract a ton of attention, but here it is. And not Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto 5 is suddenly on the charts again about 6 years later. So, it's just a game that keeps on giving. I saw some sales around the holidays, so maybe some people picked it up finally, or, they got it on another platform, if they got it on Steam or something, and they already had it on their console. So some surprising numbers, but also, we're not too worried that sales are down.
Is it going to be kind of a weird year? Because like you said, the new consoles are coming out later this year. So all these new releases, I mean, a lot of people are going to be waiting till the, PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X. Do you think that's going to reflect through the rest of the year? Or are there some big releases that could change that?
Yeah, definitely. So we do have some big releases. Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing are two notable ones, but we also have Cyberpunk, which is expected in the fall. We have The Last of Us 2, which is really exciting, but that's only a few big releases. And if you compare it to even last year, which was a fairly slow year, or 2018, which was a pretty banner year for gaming with God of War, Spider-Man, Red Dead Redemption 2, it's definitely not going to hold that much weight. I think 2018 was the last big year for this generation, so we'll see. We do have consoles coming out at the end of the year, so maybe there are some surprises in store, but I think it definitely is going to be a little bit of a weird time and more kind of wait and see and finish up all of those games you never got to over the past few years.
Time to catch up. That's what I've been doing. So, well, talking about Animal Crossing, you brought that up, and I know Nintendo Direct was today. It's the first one they've done for a few months. What kind of announcements did we get from that?
Yeah, we got to see a lot more gameplay. They haven't really shown us much gameplay since E3, which was June of last year. So we've been due, and people have also been due for a Direct in general. The last one was in September of 2019. So people were really starting to ask about when a new one was happening, and we got it today. It came up this morning, and we got to see a lot of what we can expect. And there were a lot of questions that were finally answered. We got to see, we've already knew we were getting a tent, but we got to see how, your villager can build a home and decorate it, and how that's getting updated. Even small tweaks there, like being able to move multiple things at a time, new rotation, being able to move things with more detail, or even something as simple as changing the direction of a carpet, which, sometimes you want, are being added in. There are some returning characters. So you've got people like Blathers from the museum. You've got the Able Sisters with their clothing shop coming. A lot of the traveling merchants like Sahara are coming back. And these are things that people are really excited about the new Animal Crossing for sure. It's a new game, lots of new features, but they were wondering, is this still going to be the Animal Crossing that we all know and love? And I think this really, got to those questions and made those fears go away at least a little bit. There are also some things that were totally unexpected. Animal Crossing New Horizons is getting terrain tools, which is pretty interesting. So you'll actually be able to really change the makeup of your town, something you've never gotten to do before. In New Leaf, you got to pick from 3 pre-made towns, so you got a little bit more choice, but this is the first time you really get to create a world of your own, and it seems like it's really expanding on things. In a somewhat worrying sense, it said that you could also get lost and get trapped, and they have a rescue service. So they're really changing things up a bit. But it seems really exciting. It seems like they're really taking everything from the last game, New Leaf, and even some past ones, and just building up on that, giving what fans wanted, what fans were still hoping for, and even some new surprises. Some big things that we already knew, like Isabelle was teased before, but now we got more confirmation about her role in, making sure the town is organized. Seems pretty similar to her role in New Leaf, but it seems really exciting. You get to really shape a town in your own way, more so than you even did in New Leaf, where you got to be the mayor. So it's a really fun game, and I think that this year we're also seeing it go mainstream. It's all over Twitter. People are talking about it, and it definitely captured a lot of fans' attention. We also had some questions about the save issue answered before Nintendo said that there would not be cloud saving for Animal Crossing, which really made people worried, because if you've poured hundreds of hours into this game, which plenty of people do over the years, and you lose your Switch or something happens, you might not ever get it back. And so they announced that you will be able to recover your save file, but the fine print in that is that it will be available sometime after launch, a very vague timeline, and you can only do it once, and you have to be a Switch Online member. So there are still some kinks to be worked out. There are also free updates on events that are coming, and events are something that have been really common in the game. These are holiday celebrations, so something to kind of celebrate Thanksgiving or Christmas, even if they don't necessarily call it that. And now they're going to be in free updates that are patched. One is going to be a day 1 patch, essentially. So I'm of two minds of it. It's nice that it will get regular updates, but I also wish that we just had holidays built in. That said, it seems like a really expansive game. People don't realize how big Animal Crossing is in general, and for this to be so much bigger, I can see the amount of work put into it. So it's not incredibly surprising, but it was really exciting to see more gameplay for sure.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it is one of those things. I've been seeing it trending all day, just of people talking about it, because I know Animal Crossing fans definitely anticipating this and wanting to know, if it's going to change up what it was before. But it sounds like overall this is it's going to be a pretty good release based on what you're saying. Although the saving issue, that is concerning. That's something I would be concerned with. I would hate to lose everything. But going from there, I know there were a couple other things too that were announced. Any other notable things from Nintendo Direct?
Yeah, I mean, not so much in the Nintendo Direct, but also in Nintendo news, we found out that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is coming to an end. So the DLC that's been announced is actually going to be its last DLC. So these are all the updates you guys are getting. That's it, which is kind of a bummer, but that means that by 2021 in January, when the next DLC comes out, it'll be supported for 3 years, which is pretty long for a Nintendo game. Splatoon 2 got about 2 years. So that's pretty notable, and it means that, that team can work on other titles. Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 2, not Nintendo, but that's a really big one that's happening. It just launched today. Some fun things are a new Deadpool skin that people are excited about. So that's going to be fun. It means that, Fortnite gets its revamp. It gets new challenges, new things to get, new swag to get in-game, like the Deadpool skin. So fans of that are super excited as well. And in another game that's not that new, but is getting some changes, Witcher 3 is doing cross-save. And the fact that you can, basically it means that you can save between your Switch game and your PC version. So if I've done something on PC and I want to carry that over to the Switch, I can now. And I just think this is fascinating because Witcher 3 came out years ago.
Yeah.
And it's getting all of these new features, and it's seeing this new life, which is amazing.
Is it just because of the TV series that everybody now wants to go back and play it again or play it for the first time?
I think so. I mean, I feel like I've heard of people, playing it for a while and coming back to it, especially with it being on the Switch. But yeah, I think it definitely captured new fans, people that were gamers but maybe never got around to it or never finished because it's kind of long.
Right.
And finally, it's getting this new life.
Yeah, I wonder what that's going to do for the gaming industry if they take a look at this and like, okay, well, clearly we need to make a God of War series or something like that in a couple of years, bring people back to it. Like, I wonder how that's going to have an effect on things. Just, it's an interesting study on that. Anything else? Anything else that you want to bring up? I know it's a lot of gaming news you just covered, so if there's anything else that you want to talk about that's big today.
I think that's it between Fortnite and Animal Crossing. I do have to say you have me worried about some terrible gaming shows now that I don't know if I want.
I know.
I know that gaming movies don't do too well, so.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Like, Witcher's kind of like, all right. And that's based on a book, too, so I guess that has a little bit better source material. But yeah, there's so many bad ones out there. We could do a whole show just on the bad ones alone. Maybe that should be a next segment. But, Lisa Marie, I want to say thank you, as always, for joining us. And everybody can stay up to date with everything going on in gaming at digitaltrends.com. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, always great. She keeps us up to date on everything going on in gaming. There's so much to talk about with that and everything you can follow along on at digitaltrends.com. And we've got more for you in the world of gaming. So we've got Dusty Welch and Chad Grenier, both going to be joining us next. That's the COO and the game director there at Respawn. Very excited. We're going to be talking about Apex Legends, talking about Season 4, talking about anything that you want to talk about. Of course, we're broadcasting live, so if you have questions for them, drop those into the chat on whatever platform you're on, and I will try to get those through to them. So stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. We're live every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific and noon Eastern, and we get to talk about all kinds of trends in technology. But I am really excited about our interview that we get to have right now. Joining us from Respawn Entertainment, we have Dusty Welch and Chad Grenier. Dusty and Chad, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Welcome. Thanks, Greg. How are you?
Doing great. Excited to talk about Apex Legends and everything that's going on with it. And I really have a lot of questions I want to get to with you guys. But first off, let's talk about Season 4, Assimilation, the launch of it. Chad, do you want to kind of talk about what some of the differences are and some of the different things that you brought into this one?
Yeah, so Hammond Robotics dropped a big harvester into the middle of World's Edge and put a big crack down the map. So that's a big map change that we just released. We launched our new legend, Revenant, who is a complete, badass. So lots of people playing the new character, and we've got all sorts of new meta changes, a new sniper rifle in the game, the Sentinel, a new ranked series split. So yeah, a lot of changes this season. It's exciting.
When it comes to these updates and when you get the new season, how much of that is all internal things that you're coming up with, and how much of it is actually fan feedback that you take into consideration?
Yeah, it's both. We listen to the fans, we read all the social media channels, and sometimes they just have good ideas. Sometimes they spark a good idea on our end. Sometimes our devs just wake up with some random idea and we execute on that. So they come from everywhere, really.
That's cool. So kind of bringing it in, collaborative on whatever it is that sounds the coolest. Go with that then. Talking about Apex Legends as a whole and just what a success it is. I mean, how has this ride been? Since this launched to where it is now, is this what you expected it to be to get to this level?
Well, look, I think we were astounded just like everybody else with the sheer magnitude of the success. We went into what we call the Beyonce launch, right? We're very quiet after the Super Bowl and launched the product.
Yeah.
And we were confident in what we had, of course, but we didn't realize the scale of how big it was going to be. So we've been pleasantly surprised, I guess, a bit humbled, but it certainly was exciting for us.
Talking about all of these, a lot of games getting into the battle royale category now, and you see other ones and other competition getting there because they all know this is what people want. People are enjoying this kind of competition. For something like Apex Legends, I mean, Season 4 out. What do you look at as far as what some of the competitors are doing or other game platforms, and how do you try to keep Apex Legends ahead and constantly evolving while maintaining that same feel?
Well, I think what we own is sort of the innovation within the genre. Our game launched with respawning in BR, which in itself breaks the rules of Battle Royale. And now we're seeing other people, copy that. But also we bring storytelling to the game. Who would have thought we can tell so much story in a multiplayer-only game? But we continue to do it and do more and more of it. And so if you look at our character story within the game, we're doing lore videos, like the Voidwalker. We've got lots more of those coming up. And so I think what we bring to the genre is massive storytelling and our characters.
And I agree. I think that's one of the great things about Apex Legends is that kind of mix. You still get some story within it. It's not just all, the Battle Royale side of things. When you're planning out the storylines, how far out are you thinking on those? Are you planning out to do you have Season 6 already planned, or how far out do you work on that?
A season and a character starts about 16 months ahead of time.
Wow.
Things don't have to be totally figured out 16 months ahead, but that's when it starts, right? And then it ramps up as the season approaches. So it's a long process.
And how many people are involved in writing that side of it?
It's a group effort, right? We've got, I think maybe 4 or 5 writers on site, and we've got some off-site writers. We've got marketing often jumps in with how do we do some transmedia storytelling. We've got over 100 devs here that all have great ideas, and they're chiming in. So it's really a team effort.
Looking at something else I'm always curious about too, just especially since we're getting to talk to some developers right now. You guys are at the forefront of all of this. And when you look at the different ways that the gaming industry is evolving, in different ways that people are playing, do you look at other kinds of platforms and try to see how gaming could fit into something like that, like say VR or AR or different ways that people are evolving within the industry?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. We're obviously very passionate gamers ourselves, and we play a lot of different systems, if not everything, including VR. And I think for us, we have a desire to bring Apex and our craft and our storytelling to as many geographies and many platforms as possible. So I won't go into any more depth there, but certainly important for us to keep on the forefront and bring the game everywhere.
Yeah, it's got to be exciting. I find that interesting. So you're playing all of these other games too, just to see what everybody else is doing?
Well, sure. I think we're always, as a group, playing. We love games, right? So we're always playing the different games. I would say, to Chad's point, we're not trying to copy or follow. I think the team here has shown a long history of innovation, and 2020 for us in Apex is really going to be a story about innovation when it's all said and done by the end of the year. But it's good to see what people are doing, and like anything else, it's inspiration for us, just like what we do is inspiration for them.
Yeah, 100%, and certainly Apex Legends is one of the inspiring games, I'm sure, for everybody else in the industry, let alone for the players. Something that I did have here to ask that I know some people have been asking about with Apex, about the cross-platform play. Is there anything that we could expect with that?
Well, we don't kind of comment on speculation or rumors out there, but we love to play. We go home at night, we love to play on our respective platforms, and right now we can't connect those up. And I think on a personal level, I'd love to be able to play Chad at night when he's playing on a different system than I am. And I think our fans would love to be able to do that too.
Well, yep, perfect. Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure that I got that question in there. Okay, I have to ask you each one question too. Just being involved in the gaming industry, being in this for so long, do you remember the very first game that you fell in love with playing?
I do. For me, it was Half-Life, and I actually named my daughter Alex from the Half-Life series. So yeah, that's a game that stands out to me as being meaningful when I was younger.
That would be pretty important. Yeah, if you're naming your daughter. Well, what about you?
Well, I go pretty far back in the industry. So for me, it would have to be one of the original Activision games like Pitfall or Kaboom. Those to me are really transformative. In the more modern era, I would say the original Duke Nukem, to me, with the character and personality that it delivers, I think was transformative for me.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, like going back that far, River Raid was one that I was pretty addicted to when I came back.
I wish I could pivot my camera to show you my patches on the wall here that I earned from playing River Raid back in the day.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, that's good. That's a whole other conversation we're gonna have at some point. Well, I want to say thank you guys so much, for joining us here to talk about this too, and anything else that you want to let people know about to look forward to coming out this year.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool content coming. We're doing tons of new innovations, and I'll say 2020 has been a year where the team has really gotten really excited to look at the roadmap of things to come, and we're just getting started. So each season's been better and better, and we hope to continue that trend through the rest of the year.
Awesome, thank you so much. Oh, I did have one last question. Any movement on Titanfall 3?
Well, right now we're pretty all consumed as a group here in making Apex and expanding that out. We've got Jedi that we just shipped, as you know, and we're working on a VR project here. So we're pretty all consumed. But look, we are fans, obviously, of our franchise and Titanfall. We've got a big group of people here that are passionate about trying to get back to that. So never say never.
All right.
I'll add that Apex is set in the Titanfall universe, and we do have more nuggets from Titanfall that are coming to Apex in the future. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
There we go. That's a good tease right there. Well, Dusty and Chad, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so there we go. Fantastic. Talking to those two, and we're talking about Apex Legends. What a huge game. What a big game changer that is within the industry. Really, really awesome. And I know we've got a lot to get to. I know I need to get to a break, but I want to thank everybody for joining us here on Digital Trends Live. Really appreciate it. We've got some more news for you. We've got some more interviews. We've got real news coming up, so stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Oh, hello. Thanks for joining us. This is Digital Trends Live. Appreciate it. Of course, we broadcast live here every single weekday, so it's always fun to get to have these conversations with you about technology. Let's catch you up to date on some weird tech news. That's kind of what we're doing right now. So let's talk about artificial intelligence and how it can help us talk to mice. Yes, mice. We're talking to the animals right now. So this is what's going on. This is a study that actually came out about utilizing AI, and it's from the University of Delaware, and it involves some neuroscience, but it involves studying the sounds of mice and understanding what it is they're doing when they're squeaking. So there's more to this than this. It's not just that somebody wants to, commune with the mice and the rats of the world. There's actually a lot of science behind this. So looking at it right now, studying these mouse vocalizations, you have this group of scientists. They've got a whole bunch of microphones, and they're picking up the different sounds of these mice that they're studying with a video camera as well, in order to map the sounds they make with the actions that they take after these sounds and how they interact with each other. So this is, again, University of Delaware, and we spoke to a neuroscientist there, Joshua Nunabel, who was talking about this. And getting to understand the specific reactions is a pretty big technological achievement. Because one, this is beyond our range of hearing for the most part, so we can't hear what they're doing. But figuring out what they're doing and how they're reacting can really add a lot of information to not only understanding, mice in particular in this instance, but also understanding our own reactions and interactions, as mammals. They said that the AI is really what's advancing this so rapidly. And this isn't the first instance of using artificial intelligence to try to understand animal behavior. There's I believe it's a Dutch group, maybe Danish, that is working on trying to understand what dolphins are saying, what their language actually is, because it's highly complex. But the more that we can find out about what's going on in the animal environment, the more we can understand what's happening to them, what's happening to the environment, understanding their reactions, and understanding how complex these things really are. It's pretty fascinating, and it's something that we've never been able to do before without artificial intelligence, being able to calculate and run all of these different algorithms to understand that stuff. So they've been mapping this out. They also use the human brain to try to understand that as well, because if we can understand what they're doing with their brains and with their sounds and their actions, we can understand a little bit more about ourselves. And I know that's pretty complex. I kind of boiled down a giant neuroscience study into about 3 minutes, so it's certainly a lot more that you could read up on and get more information on, but I think it's pretty interesting about using AI to understand the mice. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. All right, continuing on here with our trending stories and our news. Hi, how's it going? Let's do this. Let's talk about something else. How about hot dogs? Hot dogs and robots. Let's do that. Why not? So this is kind of a follow-up on something that we reported on back in December, and it comes from Boston University, and something they've been trying to work on, and that is getting robots to work in tandem. So this is kind of the initial study that they had, and that's showcasing the simulation of what they wanted. So here's the thing. Making a hot dog actually is a little bit more complex than you think. You think it's very easy, but really you've got the bun, and if you're talking about a robot, it can't just squeeze that. It's got to delicately pick up a hot dog. It's got to place it in there, and then also place, ketchup and mustard on. I don't use either, but if somebody wants that, that's what they have to do. And there's a lot of things that go into that, like actually being able to understand the object it's holding, like I said, how hard it should squeeze, what it should do with that, and that's a pretty complex issue. Well, now what they've done is they've actually showcased 2 robots that can, there they are, there's Baxter, and then his buddy there, Jacko. So they are working in tandem to make a hot dog. So one of them grabs the hot dog, places it on the cooker, knows how long to cook it. The other one's able to grab something else. And so it's this combination of working together is actually a very complex process. And the reason this is a pretty important study is a couple of reasons. One, it's not just to make hot dogs. This can be used in different ways, but a lot of it is figuring out how machines can learn. So they had to give it some base knowledge to start off with, but then it's the combination of that and using an algorithm to learn as it goes is what really is kind of the groundbreaking thing here. It's called reinforcement learning, as they're talking about it right there. So they can learn autonomously, but they have this base knowledge of understanding to go with. And we think that's kind of how robotics are going to be utilized going forward, is something like this. It makes them better, but it speeds up that learning time. So they can take this knowledge that they have with that and then apply it to something else, apply it to something else, apply the interactions together to something else. So it's pretty fascinating how they're able to do that. And that's, the hot dog's cool. That's really not the end goal of where they're going. So that's something that I encourage robotic uses for. I can be fine with that. If a robot's going to make me a hot dog at home, I'm all on board. So go Boston University. That is a robot study that I'm in favor for. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. But now let's talk about something else. This is terrifying. So what's more terrifying than a snake or a robot? How about a robot snake? Yes, a robot snake. These monsters have created it. So here's what we're doing. They're not monsters, but it's Johns Hopkins University who is doing this study. And in theory, it's for a good reason. So Chen Li is an assistant professor of mechanical engineering at Johns Hopkins University. Very smart people there. And he's the author of this research showcasing that right there, that nightmare fuel, a snake robot. The reason they're doing this is because they're kind of doing this, analyzing what works in nature and trying to bring that to robotics. So a snake, and here's what they're talking about. Snakes, slithering back and forth. Obviously, that's something that we know about. But how they get up and over obstacles is the key. So that's a king snake right there. Ugh. And the king snake, what's important about that is how it's actually getting up these stairs. So they studied the movement. They studied it with different terrain, with different kinds of obstacles, with different weather patterns. So even if it's wet, how does it get up and how does it actually balance itself? And it's pretty amazing, actually, the balance that a snake can have doing something like that. And so they took that and applied it to a robot. Why? Why would they do that? Well, here's what they're saying, is that it would actually be helpful for emergency situations. So this is what their idea is behind this, is that in emergency situations, obviously there's a lot of times where humans cannot get in. We've seen different forms of robots, different ways that they're trying to help out. Like say there's an earthquake, there's a bunch of rubble, and we can't get in there. And a robot, or at least not safely, a robot like this would be able to do that a lot safer. You could put some cameras on it, I don't know, strap something onto it, whatever you want to strap onto a robot snake, and get it in there into these areas that would be a lot better. So the mechanics and the actual science behind it is pretty fascinating, despite the fact that it's a creepy-ass snake robot. But nonetheless, that's what they're working for towards that. So it is to help humanity until it turns on us. I just can't help that. That thing's going to turn on us at some point. But maybe for a while, it'll help us out. So that's what you're looking at right there. It is a snake robot, a robot snake, whatever you want to call it. You can read more about it at digitaltrends.com. All right. Let's do this. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. And this is what we're going to be talking about next. We're going to talk to Peter Shankman, who's an author and public relations and branding expert. So we're going to talk to him about all kinds of things. You probably, if you do any kind of journalism, you know what Help a Reporter Out is. It's a great platform that kind of links up different journalists. I use their service. I get their emails every day. It's a really cool service that's out, and he's the founder of that. So we're going to talk about that and so much more. So stick around. Back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We do appreciate it because you get to join in these conversations that we get to have with all kinds of really amazing people, and that's what's going to be happening here next. So the New York Times called our next guest a rock star who knows everything about social media and then some. He's a 5-time best-selling author and so much more. We've got Peter Shankman joining us. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Good to be here. Thanks.
So a lot that we could talk about, a lot of different directions we could go. One, I just wanted to bring up because I use your service, Help a Reporter Out, is a great service. Can I just ask about the founding of that? What was the inspiration for that?
So I have massive ADHD, and I talk to everyone. Unless, if you're on a plane next to me, unless you fake your death, I don't know everything about you by the time you land. And so that gave me a huge Rolodex. And I ran a PR firm for years. I started my career at America Online, back when AOL was the internet. And reporters knew me, and they'd call me. Peter, you talk to everyone. I'm doing a story on whatever. Who do you know? Do you have anyone I could pick their brain? Long story short, it started taking up more and more of my time, and I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that led to a Facebook group, which led to a website with a newsletter, which led to about 500,000 people in 3 years signing up to use Help a Reporter Out. And after 3 years of running it, it was acquired by a company named Cision. It was an amazing 3-year run. I mean, it was. I could have kept it going, but it was the perfect time, and it was a great experience.
That's pretty amazing, all from just talking to people.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you just shut up for a second and listen.
Right. Well, I want to listen to you right now. So you talked about PR, and in particular, I know we want to talk about kind of the 2020 election cycle. I mean, this is something that we're all going to be seeing, whether you want to or not. We're seeing it nonstop for the rest of this year at least and beyond. And when it comes to PR, and I'm interested on your take on this, when it comes to candidates and how they relate to their audiences or to potential voters, what kinds of recommendations would you have for all of them, maybe as a whole, when it comes to PR?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. The game has obviously changed. The rules have changed over the past 4 years. I remember 3 years ago sitting at Pix 11 News all night. And I remember by 2 a.m, we were supposed to have been home and sleep, right? And I remember sitting there with the anchors and with a couple of other guests, and I'm just like, everything we know and all the information we have given our client, everything has changed. We're going to wake up tomorrow and have to completely rewrite the playbook. And it's crazy. And that's exactly what happened. We are in this environment now where the truth has become secondary, which is a shame. I'm not a fan of that. But what matters is that connection with the audience. And that hasn't really changed. It's always been the case, but it's so much more important now. And what we're seeing is that candidates are finding topics that play to their strength and just enhancing them to up-teen times, right? To beliefs that we've never seen before, to heights that we've never seen before. The concept of 50 years ago, a one-topic politician, right? A one-issue politician was supposed to be horrible. And today, that's pretty much what they're doing. And if you watch last night's debate, granted, last night's debate was let's hammer Bloomberg, but they all sort of chipped in on that. But they are really focusing on what can they do to defeat the other man? What can they do to defeat Trump? And it's not necessarily the best course of action, but it's the course of action that the audience requires of them right now. That's going to change as we move forward. But, what's interesting about it is that we're more so than ever before, an audience as a whole is not discussing the issues. You don't hear people on Facebook or on Twitter, and of course you don't, because it's sort of the cesspool of echo chamber, but you're not hearing them talk about, well, this candidate isn't in touch with my finances, or this candidate's not in touch with, LGBT. What you're hearing is, wow, did you see that swipe that Bloomberg took at Trump the other day? So it's really sort of changed into this, who can be more of a sarcastic ass? Right. And that's, again, that's going to slow down, and we're going to get into actual issues. But right now, it's really still that one guy against this group of people who tend to keep fumbling over their own feet. As they find that footing, and it narrows down to, say, 1, 2, maybe 3 candidates in a month or so. And of course, in a couple of weeks when we have the Super Tuesday, that's going to help tremendously. But what we're really, at that point, we're going to start to see them focus on the issues. But yeah, for the past year, sadly, they've been folding into Trump's playbook, which is just attack, deny, attack some more. And it's from a PR perspective, it kind of makes it difficult, because all the things that we learned, how to reach an audience, how to respect an audience, has sort of flown by the wayside.
Right. It's just about getting that soundbite, whatever's going to get retweeted on Twitter or
and
whatever.
And the thing is, the soundbite has always been useful, but the soundbite has always at least had information in it.
Yeah.
Right. The soundbite has been, what was George Bush? Are you better off now than you were 8 years ago? Right. Bill Clinton, Bush 2, even Obama, they all had soundbites, but they all were soundbites based on issues. Even taking it back to Reagan, just say no. Yeah. Right? Whatever it was, they were all sound bites that were based on issues. These are sound bites based on who can insult the other person the loudest?
Well, I want to ask, you brought up Bloomberg, and I want to ask this because I know it made a lot of waves. A lot of people were talking about it. His use of influencers on Instagram, and in particular, some of the ones that he used, which I was kind of surprised about. How do you think that is going to play as a strategy? Do you think that was a good move?
Well, if you look at how much money he spent on that, right? If you had $100 and you spent 2 pennies, not even, if you spent half of 1 cent on a campaign and it didn't work, you're not going to sit there and worry about that half of 1 cent you spent.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty much where he is. He has the ability, unlike anyone in the world, to throw every single thing against the wall and see if it sticks. A lot of, if you look at Obama's campaign in 2008 and 2012, it was primarily based on reaching out to people. They weren't called influencers at the time, right? They were called people of note or people in position who then could share with their audiences. And they were very much about data and metrics and measuring to the T. Bloomberg has sort of come in and said, okay, let's try the influencer thing. Let's see if that works. Well, does it work? Great, do it again. Oh, it doesn't work? Okay, well, we'll try this because they have all the money in the world. And it defies those sort of rules of setup of how we play things, which is, okay, we're going to throw X percent of this, but not too much in case we don't have enough left. He has enough left. He'll always have enough left.
That's true. He can afford to make those kinds of moves and see what happens.
And make those kind of mistakes.
Yeah. Well, talking about that, and just talking about influencers and the role of social media, obviously a big role in the last, election 4 years ago. What kind of a role do you think it's going to play now, especially with some of the different ways they're approaching? I mean, Twitter banning political ads. Facebook is kind of dancing on that line. Yeah, right. What kind of a role do you think these big platforms are going to have in this election?
It's definitely become, you're looking at this level of cesspool that we've never seen before, and it's going to get worse. The problem is that there are people who understand that a lot of the content that's put out there is generated by bots, is not real, right? That I was having lunch with an FBI informant a couple of years. FBI, try it again. Someone who works for the FBI,
okay,
right, who has informants. And I said, my God, how did you get all these informants? He goes, oh, well, have you ever seen my Instagram? And I'm like, no, what does that have to do with it? He shows me an Instagram. It's this beautiful 22-year-old woman who is a computer composite, right? And it's just the easiest thing in the world to get people to give whatever information he asks them because they think they're talking to a beautiful 22-year-old woman. It's hysterical. But that's kind of where we're going. People aren't smart enough to realize that the majority of information that's out there has been edited, has been deepfaked, has been botted. It's not real.
Yeah.
But the problem is that we're in an echo chamber, and let's face it, Facebook, even Twitter. Granted, I'm thrilled that they did that. That was a good move on their part to ban political advertising. But if you look at Facebook, if you look at Twitter, if you look at all the apps, all the social media sites, none of them have any financial benefit in stopping these things, right? And they talk about doing it, but there's no benefit. It doesn't benefit Facebook shareholders to ban bots from posting fake content, right? And so it's only going to get worse. And a lot of us, we look at it and go, come on, that's obviously not real. Right, but there are a lot of people who, in the terms of point and click, oh, I should share that. Okay, did you even read it?
Yeah.
And it's the equivalent of when I worked in America Online in the '90s. Forwards the emails you'd get forwarded from grandma that Bill Gates and Steve Case are going to give you $10 million if you share this email. And unfortunately, it's no longer the joke that we used to think it is. It actually has consequences.
Right.
And so I only see it getting worse. There was a great line in the first episode of the Aaron Sorkin show, The Newsroom, where the guy on stage said, we're stupid now. And we're stupid now because in the 50s, we were informed. We watched the news and we were informed by great men. And that's just no longer the case. And we get our news that has been forwarded 100 times from Facebook. We don't know where it came from, and we believe it. And that's a problem. And I don't see any solution to that anytime soon.
Ugh, man. Wow. I mean, yeah, I wish I had an answer to that too. But I guess just read your sources, find credible sources. That's what you need to do.
And the thing about it is that, remember Cliff Notes when you were in school?
Yeah.
Why were Cliff Notes so easy? Because you read 5 pages, you were able to write the article, right? Write the book report. It's the same thing here. Looking up sources, dude, that takes time. I don't have time for that. I have to go like someone's car on Instagram.
Right. Obama is a lizard person, clearly. I mean, I saw it online. So, well, I want to say, Peter, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. It is fascinating. Would love to catch up with you again, too, as we get closer on to the election, just talk about this stuff. For directing people to where to follow you, what's the best place?
I'm at Peter Shankman on all the socials. I do tell the truth on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My email is peter@shankman.com, and I'm happy to I always respond personally.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here on Digital Trends Live.
My pleasure.
All right, really fascinating discussion about that, right? What kind of role is this going to play? This is something we're going to be seeing all year long, clearly. It's going to affect every part of our lives, but just what a role social media plays. Check your sources. Well, if you're watching this show, you know that you're getting a legitimate source, but check your sources. All right, we need to take a break. We're coming back. We've got real news with Riley and Aaron. They're going to catch you up to date on what's happening at the box office this weekend, so stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Hi, I'm Erin Keeney.
And I'm Riley Wynn.
And this is Real News, the show that helps you decide what movies deserve your money at the box office this weekend. Well, the terrifying doll from The Boy is back to terrorize a new family in this horror sequel. Let's take a look at Brahms' The Boy 2.
Oh my goodness, look at that. That must be the main house. Come on, Jude.
Beware his story, one and all. Brahms was never just a doll. To live again, he needs a friend. His deadly rules will never end. If you break them, it's best to pray. For Brahms wants more than just a play.
This is a follow-up to 2016's film The Boy, and here we follow a young family who moves into a guest house on the Hillshire Mansion estate. They're looking for a quieter life for their family and their young son, Jude, who seems to be a bit off, to say the least. He tortures teddy bears and terrorizes his mom, so that's no good there. The problem is they're completely unaware of the terrifying history that lies within the walls of this mansion, and Jude soon makes an unsettling new friend, this really eerie, lifelike, creepy doll that he calls Brahms. But what seems like a somewhat innocent toy quickly turns into anything but. The film stars Christopher Convery as Jude. You might recognize him as young Billy from Netflix's Stranger Things. And then we have Katie Holmes and Owen Yeoman star as his parents.
The director William Brent Bell and writer Stacey Menear both return for this standalone sequel, and Bell said that he felt the first movie fell a little bit short in putting the characters in enough jeopardy. So he says this time the mischief of Brahms is much more threatening, and it comes in the form of injury and possibly even death. So he's turning it up a little bit. He's turning it up a notch for this one.
Why is this doll still lying around in the dirt at this mansion? Like, why is it there? I don't get it. I mean, what happened to the real Brahms? We really don't know. I mean, if I had a kid that ever found a doll that looks as creepy as this one does, That thing is going straight to the incinerator. I'm not taking any chances at all.
No chances, no chances. Well, Brahms The Boy 2 terrifies audiences in theaters February 21st. Up next, a British satire about a self-made billionaire whose retail empire is in crisis. Let's take a look at Greed.
You've been described as the unacceptable face of capitalism.
I've done nothing wrong.
He didn't do it for the man, didn't do it for the world, didn't do it for the...
This is Nick. He's chronicling my life.
He just loves money.
He paid himself and his wife £1.2 billion.
This is for all of you. No, not literally, but I mean...
What is the average wage in Sri Lanka? 50p a day. Imagine how many dresses I can get made.
Greed is a mockumentary, and it follows a British fashion mogul, Sir Richard Greedy McCready, as he prepares for his over-the-top, lavish, Roman-style 60th birthday in Mykonos. He has a journalist who is assigned to write his biography and actually travels to the Far East to tour the factories which he manufactures his clothes in to really see, the factories where McCready got so rich. McCready is in the midst of a bad publicity nightmare as all of his celebrity guests are starting to pull out from his birthday bash. Everyone except for a real-life lion he is hired for the recreation of the Colosseum scene from Gladiator. What could go wrong, Aaron? Are you not entertained?
Good plan.
Are you not entertained? Steve Coogan plays the billionaire with the fake tan and these big gleaming white teeth that we're not really sure if they're real or fake. And then we also have Isla Fisher. She stars as his flashy billionaire wife.
So this character of Greedy McCready is heavily inspired by real-life billionaire retail magnate Topshop's Philip Green. And Steve Coogan says that Green was the perfect example of what happens with unregulated capitalism and just sort of all of its ugliness. Doesn't this whole thing, though, have kind of a disastrous fire festival vibe to it, this whole party that they're planning? This is from Sony Pictures with prolific British director Michael Winterbottom at the helm. And he's known for moving around genres a lot. He's always changing things up, except when it comes to his cast. He tends to work with a lot of the same actors, like longtime friend and collaborator Steve Coogan. And the director and the studio, though, have reportedly been entangled in a months-long creative battle over the final cut of this film. So Winterbottom wanted to end the film with some real-life information about workers' pay, kind of the stark reality of workers' pay in the fashion industry. But the studio apparently said no, and it looks like the studio has the final say.
This movie looks like it's going to be way over the top and super flashy, but from the trailer, it looks like it has a similar vibe to the movie The Big Short, where it has a serious message, but it still has enough comedy and satire to make it fun and light.
Yeah, I think this film looks hilarious. Steve Coogan always makes me laugh anytime I see him on screen. But also I hope it encourages people to look a little bit deeper about maybe the not so glamorous side of the fashion industry and those who are really suffering, from immense greed. You can see Greed in theaters February 21st. Finally, a socially awkward hotel clerk becomes the prime suspect of a murder investigation. Let's take a look at The Night Clerk.
It's nice to meet you.
Sorry, I have to practice what to say. Hey, how you doing? I watch people, and I imitate.
You watch people?
Well, I study them.
Yeah, well, I guess you have a lot of people to watch at the hotel.
Yes, I do.
We have a dead woman here, and I think Bart knows something about that.
Bart is a highly intelligent hotel night clerk who is on the autism spectrum. He uses surveillance cameras to watch the guests to try to learn how to act with them and interact with them. But when he unwittingly sees someone get killed during his shift, his odd behavior soon makes him a suspect in the murder. He makes a personal connection with one of the hotel guests, but soon realizes he must stop the killer before she becomes the next victim. The film stars Ty Sheridan as Bart the Night Clerk. We know him from Ready Player One and as Cyclops from the X-Men series. Then we have Ana de Armas. She also stars. She's coming off a recent Golden Globe nomination for her role in Knives Out. Then we also have Helen Hunt. She stars as Bart's mom. And we have John Leguizamo as the detective.
So Ty Sheridan, the star, is also a producer on this film, and it's from writer-director Michael Christopher. And this is his first film in almost 20 years. But he's a busy guy. He's been really busy. He's also an actor. He starred in the shows Rubicon and Mr. Robot in recent years, and he's also a Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award winner. I do feel like it's a good sign, though, too, when a director comes back, when they've been kind of away from directing for 2 decades. He must really believe in this project.
This movie looks really strange, but very intriguing to me. So I think it'll have audiences on the edge of their seat the entire time.
No, yeah, I agree. Well, you can see The Night Clerk in theaters February 21st.
If you're going to see one movie this weekend, make it Brahms the Boy 2. You can get your tickets at Fandango.
That's all for Real News. We'll see you right here next week.
All right, thank you to Riley and Aaron. Aaron, I still owe you $5. I know, I admit it. I'm calling myself out right now on our Oscar bet. All right, that's it for Digital Trends Live today, but on Digital Trends Live tomorrow, it's Friday. That means it's time for another edition of Tech Briefs with Flipboard's Ken Young and the week's top tech stories. And we're also getting a little wild and mixing it up with TBD. Usually, Adrian and Jess are TBDing on Wednesdays, but I have made the executive decision that they're moving to Friday this week. So we'll be talking about space exposure and what will happen to your body, and maybe having some cocktails at the same time. You'll have to tune in for that tomorrow. And the New York Toy Fair is also happening this weekend, and we'll have a special guest in the New York studio, Todd Reibold of Roleplay. So Roleplay makes some of the coolest ride-on toys on the market. We'll have a Porsche and a Mercedes in the office, and maybe a few people taking a ride during the segment. I think you'll want to see that to see what happens with it. And lastly, a legend in the gaming realm, the maker of You Don't Know Jack, Michael Builder, the CEO of Jackbox Games, will be on the show. We'll have to do a quiz. Maybe I'll challenge you. I'm pretty good at trivia, so I'll take that challenge. Tune in tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, wherever you consume content. Make sure you subscribe and follow to get notified when we go live. And for Digital Trends, I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.